In this video, I'm going to break down the difference between debt settlement and paying in full, so stay tuned for that. Hey, what's up everyone, Ralph here. So if you're someone that's struggling financially when it comes to debt, trying to figure out how to pay that off can be difficult, right? So if you're someone that's trying to pay off the debt, there's two options that usually come to mind. You either want to pay it off fully or you want to settle the debt. When it comes to paying off fully, obviously that's self-explanatory, but when it comes to settling the debt, all that really means is that the creditor has agreed to accept less than what is actually owed on the debt. Right? But the question that you probably have is what makes more sense for you? So I'm going to break that down now. But before I do it, let me share with you a personal story of mine. And the reason why I want to share with you this personal story is because once I start breaking down the difference between debt settlement and paying fully, I want you to be able to refer back to my story so you have a better idea of how this works. So back in 2016, I owed about $30,000 of credit card debt. And at that time, I was up to date with all my payments. But then I made a conscious decision to not make any more payments. And the reason I did that was because I started a business at that same time and I wanted to make some money before I started making payments on these credit cards. And it's not something I would recommend that you do, it's just something that I did. So my thinking was you know what, I can't make any more payments. I gotta focus on building this business and making money with this business. So I worked on that business for 2 years, and in 2018, I finally started to make some money. So once I started making money, I decided, you know what, all right, now it's time to tackle these debts. So the first thing I paid off was my student loan, got that out the way. And then the next thing was all right, let's get rid of these credit card debt. So what I did was I called up the creditors and started the negotiating process. So instead of having to pay the $30,000, I was able to probably pay half, okay? So I was able to get rid of all that, got the letters, got all the process done to make sure that everything was legit and we got everything cleaned up. So that was my story. Now let's break down the difference between debt settlement and paying it off fully. Now, the first thing you want to consider is when you're deciding on which option to take is how each option is going to affect your credit. Now, depending on your situation, obviously I don't know your situation, but it depends if you have any late payments, if you have any charge-offs, if you have any collections, your credit's going to obviously be affected based on that situation. But the one thing that you do need to understand is creditors will look at your credit history and see where you are. If you did have that debt and you fully paid it, then obviously they're gonna look at that and say, all right, you know what, even though this person had debt, they did pay it off fully, and they'll decide what they want to do based on that information. But if you are someone that decided to settle the debt like I did, they're also gonna look at that, and they may look at that negatively as well. They see, okay, this person had a debt and then they settled it, so they're gonna look at that and then decide overall based on your history of if they're gonna decide to give you a loan. And obviously your credit score is going to be factored in as well. But the one thing you need to understand is, most importantly, obviously payment history is one of the most important things when it comes to determining your credit score. That accounts for about 35% of your credit. So if you have any late payments or any missed payments, that's going to factor in. If you have any debt settlements, if you have charge-offs, any collections, all that will be factored in. But the good thing about that is, depending on how far away removed you are from the date where you missed the payment, your credit score gets better over time. So that's one thing you need to factor in. So it's important to understand that how this, each option affects your credit in terms of what lenders see and how they determine what they're going to do when it comes to giving you a loan. All right. Now the next thing you want to keep in mind is when you're deciding which option to take is, are you even eligible for debt settlement? Because just because you have debt doesn't mean you're eligible for that. One key factor, one thing that decides if you're eligible for debt settlement is how many days late you are on your debt. How are you up to date with your debt? Usually it typically takes anywhere from 90 to 180 days for a lender to say, all right, you know what, let's settle the debt. Because let's say if you're someone that's current on your debt, you've never missed a payment, and you go to your creditor and say, hey, I want to settle, I owe 10,000, can we come up with a settlement? They're not gonna agree with it because they're you're making payments on that debt. You're current on that debt. You've missed no payments, so they see no reason to negotiate a debt settlement with you because they're gonna continue to collect that interest, right? That's interest, that's money they're making, whatever, regardless of what your APR is. If you got a 15% interest rate, that's money that they're receiving every month. Now, what makes you eligible is if let's say you're anywhere from 90 to 180 days. Now, if they see that you've missed payments and then they don't want to make sure they don't want to make sure that you don't go to collection, or you want to make sure that they charge off your debt, in order to avoid that, they're gonna say, all right, let's settle debt, because obviously you're struggling with making payments. So they might be more agreeing to make a debt settlement. But the thing is, you have to make sure you're eligible. And I'm not saying that you should do it. If you're someone that's current on your debt, I'm not saying to go in. I'm not saying to miss payments so you can then negotiate with it. In my situation, like when I told you before, I missed payments. I stopped making payments, and then eventually when I started making money, it was charged off. They were okay with making that concession, or they were like, all right, let's negotiate, because obviously, like, if something gets charged off or is sent to collection, the chances of them getting that money is less likely, so they'd be more prone to negotiate with you. So I'm not saying that's what you should do. If you're current, then obviously keep being current, but you need to understand that if you're someone that is current, then you're most likely not going to be eligible for debt settlement, because you have to be anywhere from 90 to 180 days of missed payments. And that's usually what they'll do, because if you're current, they're gonna say, you know what, just keep making payments. But if you stop, which I'm not telling you to do, but if you're someone that has missed payments, if you're 90, 80, 180 days late, then you have the option of negotiating is available to you. Now, the other difference between debt settlement and fully paid is, like, when it comes to debt settlement, if you decide to settle your debt, you're gonna have to expect taxes on that debt. If you fully pay for it, then you don't have to worry about any taxes. But if you're someone that settles a debt, let's say you owe like $10,000, and then you call up the creditor and you negotiate it, and let's say instead of paying $10,000, you pay like $6,000, right? So you're gonna have to pay taxes on that difference, which is $4,000. So usually what you'll get is, like, at the end of the year, during tax time, you're gonna get a 1099-C. Right, because you had to pay taxes on that $4,000 difference that you didn't pay, because that's regarded as income. So that's something you want to keep in mind, as if you're deciding to either pay in full or settle debt. If you pay in full, you're going to be fine. You don't have to worry about any taxes. But if you decide to settle a debt, if you say you owe $10,000 and you only pay $6,000, you're going to have to pay that difference on that $4,000. Just like I did. Like, and when I owed the $30,000 of credit card debt, and I was only able to pay like half or something around there, I had to pay taxes on that $15,000. So I received my 1099-C, and whatever the tax bill, when I did my tax return, I put that information in, and I also had to pay taxes on that. So that's something you want to keep in mind, that if you're trying to figure out if you should go between selling the debt or paying the debt fully, you will have to pay taxes if you try to settle that debt. All right. So the question is, how should you go about resolving your debt? Right? So it depends. Like, so let's say that you're current on your payments. You have a few options that you can go with. Like, the first thing you do is actually pay down the debt, right? There's two methods you can use. You can use the Snowball Method or the Avalanche Method. These are two very popular methods that a lot of people have heard from. If you're not familiar with it, the Snowball Method is pretty much you're going after the lowest debt. So let's say you have debt ranging from $1,000 to $10,000. You're gonna go after the debt with the lowest balance, okay? And the reason for that is a lot of people feel good about when they're knocking down debt, and it's a psychological thing. But it doesn't save you the most money. And that method would be the Avalanche Method. And that Avalanche Method, the way it works is basically you go after the debt with the highest interest rate. All right, and that's going to save you the most money over time. But either way works for you. It depends on how either way works, but it depends on what works for you psychologically. Like I said, the Snowball Method, when you're knocking down debt, starting from the smallest up to the largest, it has a compounding effect psychologically, and saying, all right, things are getting done. I see progress. So for a lot of people, it helps. But if you're looking for the most effective way in terms of saving money, the Avalanche Method does that better by tackling the debt with the highest interest rate. All right, the next way is debt consolidation. Right, you bring all the debt together so you can have like one interest, and it's more manageable. So a lot of people do that because they want to just work on one piece of debt and have one interest rate, and it's easier to just put everything together. All right, and third is credit card balance transfer. And what you do is, like, if you can find a credit card that has 0% APR for at least 12 months. So what you do is that you'll transfer all your debt to that credit card, and then you have to take advantage of that introductory period where they're not paying interest on that. So the goal is if you can transfer that debt over to that credit card that has at least a 0% APR for at least 12 months. You want to find a credit card with at least 12 months. Anything less than that is not worth it. But at least during that 12 months where you're dealing with 0% APR, interest, then you could at least tackle that debt and not worry about paying any interest. So you want to make sure you get rid of that debt within that 12 months. Also, you have to look for a credit card that has no balance transfer fee, because usually, like, if you transfer that debt, there's usually a transfer fee of like 3%. So if you can find a credit card that allows you to do that without any transfer fee, that'll be great. There are some out there, not too many, but there are some out there. All right. Now, if you're someone that is past due on payments, then the best thing to do is like call up the creditor and see if you can negotiate a payoff, all right, a debt settlement. So if you're someone that has like $10,000 of debt and they probably either sent you, hopefully they haven't sent you the collections yet and they haven't charged it off yet. But if you haven't gotten to that point yet, let's say you're anywhere from 90 to 180 days and they haven't sent you the collections and charged off your account like they did mine, the best thing to do is like call them up and see if you can negotiate some type of settlement, all right? You know, there's different ways of doing that. Some people can get 50%, 60%, 40%. It depends on what you negotiate. So I can do that in another video, but yeah, the best thing to do is like contact the creditor and see if you can negotiate, all right? So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you got any comments or questions, make sure to leave it down below, all right? Hit the like button, share, and please do not forget to subscribe, all right? So you guys take care and have a good one. Later.